No, and I wasn't the most athletic. I wasn't the tallest. I wasn't the most gifted. That's why I tried to make my mark by outworking those people who were more talented and more gifted, and then trying to be a sponge and pick up as much knowledge and wisdom along the way from other players, from coaches, from assistant coaches that would allow me to grow and put myself in a position where eventually I was able to make it to the NBA and stay there for a while.
Hi, I'm Nick Warner. As a dad, a lucky husband, and as a business coach, I value people and relationships above all else. But next is winning, sustainability, and healthy culture. I've been a business owner for 25 years and served for decades as a special advisor to business and government leaders at all levels. Let's just say I've seen some stuff. My passion and my expertise are helping motivated professionals and businesses find the highest level confluence of what they want in life and business. This is what it feels like to be together at the top. Thank you to our sponsors, the law firm of Scholes, Brick & Rogaski, Kathy Olson at Chips and Trips, and Three Bridges Consulting. Jim Les is the head coach for the University of California Davis men's basketball team. UC Davis is my alma mater. Go Aggies. We're catching Coach Les at the top of his game and in pinnacle years of his long career. Jim played 7 seasons in the NBA from 1987 to 1995 with the Jazz, Clippers, Hawks, and 4 years with the Sacramento Kings. And Jim was no slouch. He led the entire NBA in three-point percentage with the Kings in 1991. After 9 seasons as head coach at his alma mater, Bradley University in Illinois, Coach Les is now in his 15th season as the head coach of the UC Davis Aggies. Jim has turned the program into a consistent winner, including playing in March Madness. Jim's teams continue to set new marks for team GPA, even when the sports world devalues academics as a key performance indicator. We asked Jim Les to join us today because we're interested in his leadership journey and looking forward to hearing his thoughts on working with emerging leaders in the unique sports and academic-based setting of an upper-end academic institution, in this case, University of California, Davis. Coach, where are you today? And thank you so much for joining us on Together at the Top.
Well, thanks, Nick. This is an honor. Much appreciate you having me on. I am in my office on the campus of UC Davis. And as you know, this is a special place. So it's an honor to be talking to a fellow Aggie.
I love it. Go Ags. Also, early bird gets a worm. I talk about that with emerging leaders. Your office is, a decent distance from where you live. So, yeah, you're there early. I'm impressed by that.
I like getting in here early because, as we all know, when everybody else starts coming in the office, you can get a lot of different things put on your plate that you weren't necessarily expecting going into the day. So getting in here early when it's nice and quiet and being able to focus on my mindset, things that I know I need to get taken care of before everybody else gets in here really helps me start the day off on a good foot.
Yeah, really good. Like I said, I talked to emerging leaders in particular about early bird gets a worm, and I still have not found a sacrifice for outworking or a substitute for outworking people around you. And your later stages career still adhering to early bird gets a worm, and I need to adhere to my priorities before the world starts picking at it and making their priorities your priorities.
I've been blessed to be around some unbelievable people during my career, and I was surrounded by excellence, and I was just trying to be a sponge with being around some of the people I was blessed to be around. And one of the things that I try and instill with this next generation and the young people I get to be around is the biggest mistake we can all make is thinking we have time. The elite leaders, the elite talented individuals, they had some urgency. Today was important. I want to be great today, not I'm pushing it off to tomorrow or next week, or I'll worry about that later, or I'm only a freshman, so it doesn't matter. I'll wait till I'm an upperclassman to make my impact. Those people, time was of the essence. And today, I was going to be great today and not worry about yesterday, not worry about tomorrow, but worry about today. And I think instilling that in young people is one of the things that I pride our program on doing, and the urgency our guys have on a daily basis.
Really good. I would think, if my son was playing for you, I'd be happy about that because that's going to translate into other periods of life, other stages of life, if you will. Before we get into your playing days and coaching and leadership lessons along the way, baseline on how you grew up, paint the picture of where you came from and your early launch points that became your foundation.
Middle-class family in the suburbs of Chicago on the near north side. Mom and dad, just, hard workers. I was the youngest of four children, so I was the baby, two older brothers, 10 years and 9 years older, and an older sister. It was instilled in me from an early age of this is the way we do things. We're not the smartest, we're not the most talented, we're not the most gifted, but nobody is going to outwork us. I watched my dad go to work and he commuted an hour each way to get into the city of Chicago to go to work. My mom was always taking care of the family and doing the above and beyond, getting involved in the school to make sure her kids were on the right path. And then both of my brothers were really good athletes, as well as my sister. Pressure was on for the youngest not to break the lineage of high academic as well as high athletic young people in our family. So blessed to have a great family upbringing, and that influence on my life I take with me every day.
Keeping with that theme, you grew up in Illinois, played at Bradley, as I mentioned, not Duke, not UCLA, not Kentucky. I'm curious how coming from a mid-major shaped who you became as a competitor. And did it create a chip on your shoulder in a good way?
I think every athlete wants to try and compete at the highest level, but the reality of it was, and my dream school was to go to Bradley because my older brother had played there. So I grew up watching games and going there, and they turned me down initially. And my college coach, he claims that that was his only mistake in his life was not taking me out of high school, but I wasn't good enough at the time. I had to take a different route and go to Cleveland State University and go there. And I remember when I had success there, all these other schools that I was wanting to go to initially out of high school came after me and say, "Hey, we want you to transfer." I said, "You know what? I'm sticking with the guy who gave me my chance." Unfortunately, he had gotten fired midway through my sophomore year, so he came to me and said, "Hey, I know you had options to leave. So if you want to leave now, you can stay here or you can leave." So then I reached back out to Bradley, my dream school, and the second time around they took me. That's the other message I try and preach to all of our young student athletes. Everybody's path is different. We can all be enamored with watching the person next to us or across the street or in the next office. You got to focus on your journey and what's going to make you successful and the things that you need to do on a daily basis. And, I tell people all the time, if you're not where you want to be in your life, personally or professionally, you got to edit your life. What are the things that are preventing you from getting to those areas? I have young people that sit in my office and talk about playing professional basketball and playing in the NBA and wanting to get drafted. Well, your habits better show me on a daily basis that's reflective of the goals that you have. And if it doesn't, that's my responsibility to call you out on that and make sure that I'm overseeing that for you because your goals become my goals. But you're also going to hear some tough truths along the way if you veer from the path of getting to those goals.
So you're a third round pick by the Atlanta Hawks. I don't think we have a third round in the NBA, do we anymore?
No, we
I
don't.
mean, that impresses me even more because not only did you make it, but like you made it. So you go on to play 7 NBA seasons. Walk us through that ride and how it started to shape your thoughts about basketball, leadership. You mentioned work ethic and all that communication.
I think society gets enamored with the first round picks, and these guys get guaranteed monies and all kinds of opportunities. And the guys on the back end of the roster who are just fighting, scratching, clawing, year in and year out to try and make it. It taught me a lot about dealing with adversity. It taught me a lot about, hey, being cut and having your dream taken away from you and deciding, well, hey, do I want to keep pursuing this? Do I have the fortitude to continue down this path? I had great support from family and friends to do it, but there was an internal struggle a lot of, is this all the time I'm putting in? Is this going to be worth it? No, and I wasn't the most athletic. I wasn't the tallest. I wasn't the most gifted. That's why I tried to make my mark by outworking those people who were more talented and more gifted, and then trying to be a sponge and pick up as much knowledge and wisdom along the way from other players, from coaches, from assistant coaches that would allow me to grow and put myself in a position where eventually I was able to make it to the NBA and stay there for a while.
So on mentors, coaching mentors in particular, give us some examples of how mentoring, I guess good and bad, factored into your early days as a professional, as a player at that time. And what are some of the things you took with you, Jim, from your playing days And what did you experience? It will never be part of your coaching or leadership style.
I tell recruits, I tell my current student athletes, my former student athletes all the time, the way I try and lead is going through a lot of different experiences with leaders, some really good and some not so good. When I look back at my playing career, the most success that I had was under those kinds of leaders that, first of all, took an interest in Jim Les as a person and got to know me and built a relationship with me, built a level of communication, built some trust in me. When we had that kind of dynamic, it allowed that person to really push me on the floor because in order to grow, you got to go through adversity. You got to go through some tough times. You got to be able to be pushed and your limits have to be constrained in order to take steps forward. I look at those places under those leaders, man, I felt the most confident. I played the best. I was most comfortable in my own skin. I became a better leader and a better person and a better player because of that person who was guiding me. And then I went other places that had no interest in me as a person, had horrible communication. Their leadership style was all about them and their ego. I want to win for me because I know that's good for me in my career. So I just want to use those players I'm coaching in order to have success. Therefore, the demeanor that they had, instead of breathing confidence into the players, it was anytime you made a mistake because they felt it was a reflection on them, they were on you and jumping on you. So we had coaches where you were playing scared. You weren't playing confident. I know those situations for me, not good as a player. Those haven't gone through all of those experiences, good and bad. It gives me great perspective with our guys now in terms of making sure that I'm consistently talking to them about, first of all, them as people, as persons, as students, developing a level of communication and trust where they can walk in my office, shut the door, and we can have really deep conversations, not just about basketball, but about life. I think there's a lot of times when they walk out of here and they have a sense of this is not about me as a basketball player or us winning the next game. It's about me as a person. The buy-in because of the level of communication and trust becomes so much greater. And that buy-in is for the organization, for this university, for the program. That eventually is going to lead to some really good things and good success.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, that's really interesting in terms of the building trust and confidence. I'm a coach also, not on the court, but a business coach. And I think when I was thinking about my own experience of people I'm working with, once you can build trust and rapport and understand you're rooting for them as a whole person. And then my example will be it's not just about me getting a good review or like, hey, I won. It's not a story about me, it's a story about you. I hunt as a business coach for me first MFers. When I'm working with a leadership team or the leader, if you're a me first MFer, you can fill in the dot, then you're probably going to have a problem with me. You're describing the inverse, which I think is really great.
I think one of my strengths with them is there isn't anything they're going to go through as a player that I haven't experienced myself. I've been hurt. I've been the leading scorer on the team. I've been the last guy on the bench. I've had moments where I felt like, hey, I'm never going to miss. I've had moments where I felt like I'm never going to make one. Those are all the experiences that these guys, these young people have to help. I got to be there to help them navigate all those things. And especially in today's microwave world, everybody wants success yesterday or want it today by noon. There's just no, hey, we're going to work and gradually get better and build. You're going to come in here as a freshman. This is a good program. We have good players. You're not going to dominate. You're not going to necessarily impact us right away, helping them navigate that process of, hey, I was the best player on my team in high school to now being not the best player here. That's a lot for a young person to deal with. And oh, by the way, you got to get in the classroom and compete at a top 10 academic school in the country, a top 50 school in the world. So it starts to come at you in all angles because we all thought in high school we were the best and invincible. Then you get here and you're like, wow, there's some elite people that I got to compete with every day. I think it raises the boat for all of our guys in this setting. But the initial shock and that kind of smack in the face is tough to deal with sometimes. And those are the things I think that coaching and leadership is about.
Yeah, before I ask you, I want to ask you about the transition from the end of your playing days and what came next for you professionally. But you touched on an interesting topic, at least for me, which is demonstrating good leadership behavior. You demonstrating good leadership behavior. So you telling them one thing and then showing up late for a meeting. You telling them about conflict management and losing your mind. You forgetting, getting wrapped up in yourself and your record, like all the things you mentioned. Do you think about demonstrating good leadership behavior so you can get that kind of behavior back and move people?
Yeah, and I think, Nick, it's so important. I can deliver a good message, but if I don't live that message on a daily basis, the kids are going to pick up on that. We're a program, we don't have a whole two-page list of 50 rules. Our rules are really simple, and the biggest one we have is respect. Respect the place that we're at, respect the room that we're in, respect the time of the other people on our team. On time is 10 minutes early, late is on time. And that shows because all of us can look at different areas of our life, and where we spend our time and where we spend our money is what we value the most. And I'm guessing, Nick, if you were going to look, it's your family, it's your kids, it's your job. That's where you spend your time and money. So those things have to show your importance. So if you're coming late to a meeting or a training session or a lift, or you're going to meet our trainer who's putting you through some rehab and you show up late, one, you're showing me it's not important for you. I don't ask you to do things that aren't going to make you a better player. I'm not going to ask you to do things that aren't going to make you a better person. So I want you to see value in that. We have some quote unquote punishments. We'll get up early and run. We'll do some things we call them overtimes after workouts where the guys who came in a couple minutes late have to go through some extra work just as a reminder. And it's interesting. I had a young man when I was coaching at Bradley that didn't mind getting up really early and didn't mind running. So he had this consistent, I'm late. Oh, yeah, I don't mind, coach. I'll get up at 6 and I'll go run. And I'm thinking, well, hey, how am I going to send this message? I got to correct this behavior. I got to change this behavior. The third time he came late, we put him in a chair at half court and we brought all of his teammates there at 6 a.m. Now, those teammates were not happy to be there at 6.
No, I would expect not.
He had to sit there and watch them run. And he felt the angst that they had towards him because you cost me sleep time. You're making me run. That young man was never late again for the rest of his career. And that's the other thing. There's not a cookie cutter format when you're leading in terms of, hey, I'm going to do this, and every time it's going to work or get the response you want. One of the best things we do as a staff is we're constantly adjusting to make sure we get the right response. Generations change, individuals change. So being able to adjust and read a situation and make changes, I think is really helpful from a leadership standpoint too.
Yeah, really good. It indicates team sport, the quote unquote punishment that you doled out there, but also respect for others, which is the foundation of the program, respect for other people's time in this case. Yeah, it's great. And I also like the notion of there isn't one foolproof or cookie cutter or template thing. Part of your job as the leader is to demonstrate good leadership behavior, to give them suggestions for how to get better, and to continue to add tools to your arsenal. Sounds offensive, but to your coaching style to reach people. The goal is to reach people. One of the things I find is, I'm curious on your comment on this, if I tell somebody what to do or I kind of force them to do it, because at times I have leverage from the employer, it's like a weeble wobble. They pop right back up to the center. But if I can get an adult or emerging leader to change the way they're thinking about something, and I think your example of the people running the court, the players running the court while somebody's on a chair is an example of you're force feeding it, but I'm guessing there's a paradigm shift in there where the player goes, I see it now. It's not by force, it's by I see it now. And you added another tool to your teaching stable, if you will, your arsenal.
There's no question. And if you look at, and I'm going into my 25th year of being a head coach, early on in my career, I was the dominant voice, not only in team meetings, but individual meetings. And my growth as a leader has been, I'm always starting the conversation with our players, but I'm first and foremost listening. What I found is those guys, whether they're coming late or we're trying to correct a behavior, sitting them down. And before, instead of just getting after them and telling them about the things where they're falling short and talking about how they're letting the team down and letting me down, it's, hey, you seem a little bit off lately. Talk to me about what's going on. I know you're better than this. And I know what your goals and dreams are, we've kind of gotten off kilter. And everybody gets off kilter or gets out of rhythm with their life, with their shot, with playing the game. We're not perfect, we're not robots. So let's talk about where you're at. I'm amazed sometimes at the response I get back because they're dealing with some things. Maybe it's personally, maybe something back at home. Maybe they just broke up with a girlfriend versus you as a leader just jumping on and piling on with maybe what they're already going through. That relational approach that, hey, I care about you first and foremost, to ask the question of what's going on with you. And then having those prior experiences before where you're building this level of communication and trust where now the player can say, you know what, coach, well, here's the deal. Here's where I'm at. And now, okay, how can we get through this and how can we work through that? Those interactions lead to what we ultimately want as a leader is that buy-in and that I'm invested in this because I care about the people that I'm working with, not just the leader who cares. We're always going to be the most invested because our name's on
Yeah,
it.
your name's on the door.
You're the head coach. But when you can get everybody equally invested into each other and into representing this program and this university in a high level, now you can do some special things and you're going to have special memories when you leave here.
One of the things I was going to ask you later on that you brought up, I was going to ask you after 25 years of coaching, and these are 18 to 22-year olds, and as you move on in your life and age, if you will.
So, Nick, let me ask you this question. My livelihood, the last 25 years, based on the decision making of 18 to 22-year-olds. What do you think about that?
That's a great point. Yeah. No, yeah, your livelihood and your success is based on 18 to 22-year olds coming through for you. But I was going to ask you, do you meet them where they're at or do you make them meet you where you're at? And I'm hearing it's all the above because I think after 25 years, maybe you've earned the right to go Bobby Knight. There's very little listening because you figured it out. That's not what I'm getting from you. And to be honest with you, Jim, as I've gotten to know you better, it's part of the reason why I'm attracted to you and why I asked you to be on the podcast. You're a humble, successful leader at the top of his game. And I'm not picking up. I got to meet you where you're at.
I think you got to adjust. There's times as a coach, I tell the guys all the time, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to explain it to you. If we get to that fourth or fifth where I'm getting no response from you or from them, now there's going to be some intensity. There's going to be some emotion in my message, but it doesn't go from 0 to 100 to that. It's, hey, okay, not getting the response. I always look at it this way. If a young man's not playing well or playing up to his potential, rather than point the finger at him, I tell our staff, we got to point it at us. Okay. What are we not doing in terms of putting him in a position to be successful? How are we not relating to him? What's the message we're giving him? Do we have to breathe some confidence in him? Do we need to do some individual film work, some individual time just to make him feel like, hey, everybody goes through this. Everybody struggles shooting the ball or whatever it is. Everybody has some periods where they don't play well. Our goal is to get you out of it. And I think so many times we're pointing fingers or we want to rip the behavior versus figuring out a way. And us as the leaders, it's on us to make sure that we're pulling them out of whatever doldrums they're in. It's amazing when, especially with the young people, when they see that light and they get back on the other side, they've been vulnerable a little bit. They've been allowed to be pushed. They've had to deal with some adversity. Because I think sometimes the young people in this new generation, they just want it to be a smooth ascent up that mountain. The reality of it is that doesn't happen. Our preparation for the adversity, our willingness to deal with the adversity and know it's coming. And then how are we going to handle it? And then trusting the people because we built relationships and trusting the communication you're getting from people around you to handle whatever it is you're going through. Wow, the growth that you can see and the confidence that you can see from the young people, to me, that's what makes this a special mentoring opportunity for me and my staff.
Do you evolve naturally or do you rely on, you mentioned mentors, phone a friend, reading leadership books, or is it just real world experience? How do you continue to push yourself in your evolution, especially as the age gap gets bigger, coach?
It's all of the above. As I'm driving in or driving home, I'm listening to different podcasts, just tapping into other people, and not necessarily in the sports world, but just in general. There might not be a lot in what that person says, but there's one phrase or there's one story that they give you that says, you know what, that's something that I can use. I think that's really important. Every year since I've been in coaching, I go to this coaching clinic and it's on the East Coast. And Billy Donovan's a guy who started with a good friend of mine, Larry Scheid. And it's 25, it started as like about 20 coaches just sitting in a room for a weekend and talking about all the things. Cause as a leader, you can always feel like you're on an island. Like, am I the only guy in the world who's dealing with whatever I'm dealing with? And it's so nice to reach out to other people in your realm that say, hey, you know what? I deal with the same stuff and here's how I handled it, or here's what I'm doing. And here's a different way to look at what you're doing conceptually, offensive and defensively, but also in the recruiting process, in dealing with these young people, in the level of communication. That really has kept me into coaching is spending time with those guys. And I'll be going again this year in August back east to sit down with those people again and continually grow. If you're not a lifelong learner in whatever aspect of your occupation you deal with, times change so fast and people change so fast. Some of that is just cathartic to be able to vent. And sometimes I've gotten on the plane to come back and I'm like, I got it pretty good.
Yeah, right.
I don't have it as bad as some of these other guys. And they're at some elite programs, some of the top programs in the country. And I'm like, man, I would not want to deal with those problems.
Yeah, your players are going to be doctors, engineers, attorneys, CEOs, presidents, and fathers too. By the way, which are I think a pretty darn good one, at least as I see it. But also to your point, academics is a key performance indicator and really a differentiator at UC Davis, and it's different at the D1 level. You continue to set program records for team GPA, as I mentioned at the top. As a fan, and as an alumni, I see social media and marketing focused around academics at UC Davis in ways I don't see at other programs. That seems purposeful from a business and a culture standpoint. Can you explain that a little bit?
I think an overriding message for us is I want you to use basketball. I was blessed. I played till I was 33 years old. That's a small percentage of guys that get to do that. I don't want to be the dream killer. I want everybody that comes here and says, hey, coach, I want to go and I want to play professionally. I'm going to do whatever I can to put you in that light, including using not only the knowledge, but also the resources and the people that I have and networking to try and get their foot in the door and get them those opportunities. And we have some guys playing all over the world and doing really, really well. It was always, you're going to leave here with your degree first. You're going to use basketball to open up doors for the rest of your life. And you're going to walk out of here with this world-class education. This is a typical team of us: mechanical engineering, chemistry, neurobiology, managerial economics, communications. We've had guys get their master's degree while they've been playing. I equate it to having two full-time jobs. It's all the things that we require for them as student athletes and players and being a Division I basketball player and competing at the highest level. And oh, by the way, you got to go in that classroom with those kids who were in there and they weren't traveling this weekend. They didn't have a game. They didn't have injuries. They didn't have a 2-hour practice plus a lift and they're dead tired. You got to go walk in that classroom and compete at a high level. The best part about this, and it's helping them navigate that struggle because it's not easy. But what I see on the back end, and it's a little bit what you're talking about, I see people that are working at places and I see their employers and I'll talk to them and they'll reach out to me and I'll go, it's unbelievable, this young person. They know how to time manage. They know how to deal with pressure. They know how to deal with hard work. They know how to be a great teammate and help their fellow coworkers because they've grown up in this team environment. So as much as I'm proud of our guys, and some of them are making 7 figures over in Europe playing professional basketball, I'm equally as proud as those other guys that are in the corporate world and are kicking tail and relate to some of the things that happened here. Or maybe it was a message we as a staff gave them that they're using. Same thing with their kids. I love it. The best part of having 25 years of coaching is all the players that are out there that now are not only successful in the business world, but they're dads. And now they're coaching their kids and using messages that I, or maybe some of my staff have told them. And then they reach out and go, I can't believe I said this, but I said it to him, coach. You remember when you told me this? Those are special. And that's what people say, well, why do you keep doing this? And when are you going to retire? Man, I love what I do. And as long as I still have the energy and juice to be around these young people and give them everything I have on a daily basis, if I start shortchanging them, I'm going to walk away. But right now, I'm still loving it.
Let's go. Recruitment and retention. As a business coach, these are markers of organizational health for me when I work with an organization. Whether it's UC Davis basketball or a company in Sacramento, we need to recruit top talent and retain that talent. In a world where talented workers and basketball players alike have freedom of movement, how do you recruit and how do you retain?
We have unlimited free agency right now in college. There isn't any professional sport that has unlimited. So every year you're re-recruiting your team. I think if you run your organization or you run your team or run your program to try and retain, you're going to lose people. You have to be who you are. We have to value the guys that we coach on a daily basis. We have to get to know them. We got to have a high level of communication with them. We got to build some trust with them. They've got to feel every day how much we care about them. And it's funny when we get guys transferring in from other programs, it's amazing how they notice that difference right away. You don't necessarily realize you have trust until your environment where there is no trust. Now, all of a sudden, that hits you in the face. I've had situations where people will go, well, hey, are you worried about this young man who he was a starter? We had to put him on the bench because things weren't going well. He was not buying into the things that we needed him to do. And again, we had tried to work our way through it. Hey, what's the next step? Next step is he's probably going to sit down and watch the start of the game because that was going to send a message like, hey, we've got to change this behavior. The first comment, because this is one of our better players, was, aren't you worried that he's going to transfer because you did that? And I said, that's not why I'm making the decision. I'm making the decision because I have such a high vision for his ceiling as a player and person, but he's got to get through this hurdle that we're trying to get him through. That's our goal as a leader, is to do that. Lo and behold, sits a couple games, comes back, gets right on track. So when I say you cannot coach or lead from the standpoint of I'm worried about him leaving, you got to be true to your culture. The last 2 years prior to this past one, Nick, our two best players each year, two different guys, they were offered a lot of money to leave UC Davis. They walked into my office, both guys, tears in their eyes. Coach, I don't want to leave. Can you help me with this decision? I said, listen, the offer you have, I cannot make that decision for you. Just know I'm going to support you. Our relationship doesn't leave because you leave. I'm going to be involved in your life for the rest of your life because of the experiences we've already had. I'll be here as a resource for you, but I can't tell you to make that this or that decision. You've got to come to grips with what you want and the money. I mean, it was significant amount of money and the difference in the money was significant. Long story short, both guys came back.
Oh, really?
Both guys came back and put themselves in a situation with how they were playing is now they're both playing professionally and more than made up that money,
Interesting.
but valued the culture, the relationship. And when one of the young men, he was at a different university before he got here. It did not go well, did not have a great experience. He didn't have a great relationship with the head coach. The communication wasn't very good. And he was like, Coach, I'm not doing that again. I don't want to deal with that again. The retention piece for all of us, because we invest so much time in developing talent. We want to keep that talent. But if you're straying away from your culture and who you are, and you're trying to be somebody you're not in order to retain that talent, you're going to lose them anyway. And the guys know, you know what? My level of truth with you, I'm going to live it every day because I had coaches back in the day who used to BS me and they tell me one thing and do another. And I remember how I felt in those instances. And I did not feel very good as a player. And I know I didn't respect that person. So I tell the guys, you know what, for better or worse, I said, I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I want you to be honest with me. I want you to give me the truth back. How are you feeling? How are you thinking? If there's something that's going on in your life, if there's something that we said or we did that you took offense, I want to know about it. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes every day. But if we can share in those instances, those truths both ways and talk them out, man, that bond becomes so strong. When that bond is strong, even significant dollars aren't going to break that.
I work with a company in Sacramento. It's a statewide law firm, and one of their best people is getting recruited by a recruiter, obviously. The guy reached out to me a couple weekends and was like, "Man, I think I might take this." My advice was go talk to the coach. Go talk to, in this case, the managing partner. Don't get caught with your hand in the cookie jar or don't erode trust. And he stayed because of a lot of the things you talk about. But I called my favorite recruiter and I asked her, I'm going to say her name. She's awesome, Michelle Zuniga. I asked her, how do we avoid this? My guy is really pissed about somebody trying to steal his best players, his best employees in this case. And she said, sweetheart, that was me. She said, sweetheart, be the best employer you can possibly be because we're coming after your people. That's your only hope. And it really stuck with me. And that's what you're describing in a way. Where I lose you on that is, and I feel the same way as a coach, is don't have a coach that's in first career because I don't think he can push you or she can push you the way you need to be pushed because they're trying to keep the job. I would like to keep in your employ. I would like to work for your organization for you personally, but that's not my number one goal here. My number one goal is to find your highest level of confluence. But you better be a good employer, a good coach, good communicator, or you probably don't stand a chance. I thought that was sage advice that plays in here.
I have coaches at much bigger schools, much bigger programs. They tell me, hey, we have assistant coaches watching your games. They're evaluating your team because we know those guys are going to be coached. We know they're going to be fundamentally sound. We know you're going to watch tape with them and you're going to hold them accountable. There's two ways to look at it. We could be pissed off about that and change the way we do things. And I told, as we talk about it in our staff meetings, listen, that's a compliment to all of us. Guys see our program from a distance. They're not even in our program, but they respect our program and they know how we develop young men. They know the kinds of kids we recruit. They also know the acumen they got to have to get into this school. So the academics aren't going to be an issue for them. Let's not change what we do. Let's embrace that. But let's, again, rather than point this at, hey, the players and they're just going to leave, so shortchange them. No, let's up our game to make sure that we create such an environment, such a culture, such a relationship where it makes him pause, that he's not just going to jump at any amount of dollars to leave. We had a young man in this scenario, and his family was adamant about he should leave. There's more money out there. And the young man did not want to do it. Before he signed with the school that he's going to go to next year, he called me and just said, Coach, is there any way I could come back? And I felt horrible because once a guy goes into our transfer portal, I start looking to replace him. And I just tell that, listen, if you think you want to come back, don't let your ego get in the way of calling me, but just understand I got to do what I have to do to replace you and build the team that I need to build for the upcoming season. And we had already taken a commitment from a young man to replace him. That was a tough conversation. He understood the risks on the front end, but if anything, it emboldened us with still doing the right things within our program to make it hard to leave, even though there might be a difference in the dollar amount.
Yeah, that's great. I'm taken by all that. Hey, I've lost myself a couple times in this interview where I feel like I'm talking to a CEO or a president. I mean, you're a basketball coach, but everything you're talking about is business, is leadership, could be a board of directors. If I did a 360-degree review on you from administration, sponsors, players, and parents, what common themes would my notes show?
In terms of like the tasks I'm responsible or just my approach.
Yeah, for those that work for you, around you, what would they say about you? A lot of times when I start an engagement, I start with a 360 review of the executive. What would people around you say about you?
My staff says is there's no task too big or too small. I think our players all the time, we ask them to respect the locker room, respect the gym, respect the places. And we have some beautiful facilities here. Let's take pride. So it's not uncommon for any one of us to be walking over and picking up some trash in the hallway because you know what? That's taking pride in the facility. And that's having some gratitude of, hey, we get to be in this place. Let's make sure we do our part. I think the communication, and this could be a good thing or a bad thing, is I directly address things that I'm feeling or I think we're having issues with, and I'm going to go right to the source right away. And I think sometimes people are a little bit taken back by that because we're in an environment where maybe it's an email, maybe it's a text message, maybe it's a week later. And some of the great people I've been around, the biggest mistake was time. I think about how much time I wasted as a young coach or as a young player, and I didn't express what I was feeling and dealing with the emotion, the issue, the problem as quickly as possible, and found out it wasn't really a problem. Or I got context with that person that I was dealing with right away to be able to address the problem. Oh, I didn't know that you were doing this or you were doing that behind the scenes. Oh, that's good for me to know. Now I don't have to worry about that. How many times have we had that tough phone call that we had to make at that time and we put it off and we put it off and it consumed us for 3 or 4 days? And what did that do to your productivity? Or for me, if I'm dealing with a player or maybe it's someone here or a coach, now I'm so caught up into that, I'm underselling everybody else who needs me to be at my best because I postponed that issue that I needed to confront. I'm more, let's get it out in the open. Let's talk it out. I know I feel better. I think that person maybe doesn't like it if it's somewhat a little bit confrontational in terms of dealing with an issue. But I think at the end of the day, the respect is there. And I tell our guys all the time, you guys are never going to wonder about what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling because I am going to tell you. And I'm going to tell you where you stand, which from a player standpoint or from an employee standpoint with your boss, what does he think about me? What does he want me to be better at? What is the things he appreciates about me? I'm putting that out there as much as I can. I love what you're doing here. Here's the areas I need you to get better at. And you know what? I'm going to help you get better. Here's some things I would do, I would change. And if you want to be who you say you want to be, I'm going to see that change here in a short period of time. And then again, it's up to us as I'm observing that, wow, he's really changed his approach in the weight room. Or I know he's getting extra shots up, because he's pulling, he grabbed two of the assistant coaches and he took an extra 100 shots after the game. Now I'm grabbing him and going, hey, and I have a saying, the game knows. When you respect the game, you put in the time, effort, you study, you watch the film, you're looking at the playbook at night. The game knows and the game rewards you and rewards you tenfold. But the game also knows. I sat beside in a 7-year career some of the most talented, gifted young people. And I remember looking at these guys going, man, just give me that for about 5 years. I'm going to go make $100 million and then you can have it back. I saw people that didn't respect the game, didn't work at it, took it for granted. And man, the game humbled them. The game humbled them horribly. And I saw these guys that came in as a high first round draft pick just become a shell of themselves because of their approach. I think life is the same way. Life knows. Be a good person, be appreciative, be kind to others, be a great teammate. Don't make it about you. Be egoless, and life will reward you too.
Yeah, I love your leadership verbiage. I mean, it's one of the reasons you go meet with these other coaches and podcasts is you also pick up verbiage, which helps you reach people. I'm getting a sense of what you're getting better at and what you're good at. Is there anything you still suck at that you're really trying to get better at this stage of your career?
My intensity, because I wasn't as gifted, wasn't athletic, wasn't as talented as a lot of guys I was playing against. My hard work and my intensity was my separator for me. That intensity comes out. Like when we step between the lines, and I tell my guys, I love that you're awesome. My guys, Nick, you would want to play a round of golf with these guys. You'd want to go to dinner with them, and you'd be like, hey, I don't want this evening to end because they're so enjoyable. They're so engaging, and they're just young and they're vibrant and they're just have such great stories. And we recruit kids from all over the world. We have 5 international kids on our team. When I sit down with them and break bread with them, they're teaching me as much as I'm imparting wisdom on them with their backgrounds and the things that they've been through. I tell them all the time, though, the one thing that I have very little patience for is that person that doesn't work as hard as they can and doesn't bring that competitive fire that I know you need to have, whether you're in the corporate world or whether you're on the basketball floor. Those are things, and I have to dial mine back sometimes. I know, especially on the younger guys on our team, it could be overwhelming. It could be intimidating. That's something that I need to work on. I've gotten better, but it can always be better.
We share that in common. That's my separator too, but it's also less and less, but that's where my problem points are also. Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say, and I appreciate it. I mean, it's some version of checking other people's frame of reference, meeting them where they're at, evolving your game. And some people will take well to it and some won't, but it speaks to me. That's, I think, for a lot of us who have done really, really well, the intensity gets you there, but what gets you here may not get you there.
And I do think it also helps you. And I get to stand up in front of 15 guys every day and talk to them and deliver a message. There have been a lot of times I've walked in after the game and I said, you know what? That was a horrible play I drew up. We had a chance to win a game late in the game, or, it might have been a decision I made. And I think it's important for us to own that in front of them. It's not just you guys that are imperfect. We're playing an imperfect game. We want to be a perfectionist, but it's imperfect. I think showing the vulnerability that you can own the mistake and talk about it, or again, with my some would say your strength and your flaw is the same thing, and that's my intensity. Well, if my intensity is causing guys to be intimidated or play scared or not be aggressive or to be worried about me versus what they're doing, now that's on me. There might be a flare up and I notice it and I feel it, that I'm going to address with them. And I apologize. I got to be better.
I love leaders apologizing. That demonstrates great leadership behavior. Hopefully, you're not doing it twice a month because that's too many mistakes. But yeah, I love a leader at your level saying sorry about that and explaining the why. It's great.
When you look at a college basketball game, the number of decisions you have to make, substitution, play calls, timeout, it's endless the number of decisions you have to make, and you're not going to be perfect. You're striving for that perfection, but I think the vulnerability that, hey, if we want to have this tight knit group, we have to have some sort of emotional security within the group where we can say what we need to say about ourselves that is not going to be taken outside of that room, that gives us perspective. So we talk about that all the time. And that means also I've got to listen to my teammate or my assistant coach that says, hey, we need to do this, Jim. You got to change. You have to do this. The emotional security means I got to be able to listen to my peers or my players when they give me feedback and absorb that feedback and say, you know what? He's right. I got to make this change. Or, you know what? I don't necessarily agree with him, but I need to better explain my position because I think my position is going to put us in a better place. But again, that emotional security is important within a group or an organization.
I like that phrase. As we get into fourth quarter here, coach, being a dad and a husband in this life, let's talk about that. The seasons are long, like not just this season, but even back to your NBA playing days. These seasons are long. Recruiting never stops. How have you navigated career and family? And what do you tell young coaches or leaders who are starting to feel that pull? What role has your family played in your success?
Well, I'll just tell you the stars in my life are my family. My wife, Jody, and Tyler, and Amber, and Hannah, because as a leader, you don't always see the sacrifices that are being made by your family in order for you to lead. This is an all encompassing job of leading these 18 to 22-year-olds. And our schedule is erratic. And there's a lot of holidays when we have games or we're away in tournaments and you're away from family. I was blessed. I've been married for 36 years to Jody, and she championed me in this occupation I had of playing and coaching basketball. I think we moved 9 times during that 36 years. We lived in 3 different countries. There were a lot of times when I was not around for the kids, and she was the sole parent. That also being understood, I also think the leaders have to make sure that you have balance. And I know there were a lot of times where, you know what, I'm not going to that because Tyler, Amber, Hannah have this going on. I am going to be there, or I'm going to come back early, or I'm going to miss this, because that balance is really important. Some of the memories as we get together as a family now and the kids are older is, taking my daughter on a recruiting trip with me, or them flying on the team plane as we went to a game, also involving them in our team. We have a lot of international guys, so a lot of those guys can't get home for the holidays. So they're spending it with us and my family. And I remember, 2 of the players, and they were from England. It was Ade and Caleb. Well, they had graduated. So Christmas came that year, and the last four Christmases they were with us, and they weren't there that year. The girls are like, "Well, where's Addie and Caleb? I mean, they should be here. That it doesn't feel right that they're not here." I think being able to mesh and blend the experience you have as a leader and letting your kids see what you do and be around those people, but also making sure that you're providing the time and they understand how important they are to you and you're communicating to them, hey, I'm really, really sorry I couldn't do this, but I'm going to make up for you because I'm going to do that.
And then doing it.
And then you got to follow through, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, I have to ask you about this. We're in the fourth quarter and getting close to overtime. Working with family can be so hard. And I have to ask about this. He's one of my favorite teams. Your son Tyler was an absolute stud guard when he played for you at UC Davis. I love that team with Tyler and also Corey Hawkins. Those two were electric, and you went all the way to the NCAA tournament. I went to some games that were like overflowed, packed on ESPN. It was so much fun just being around the program at that point. But for anyone who's ever worked with their dad or coached their kid, we know it can spell trouble. Tell me about the experience of working with your son and any advice you might have about working with your kid or coaching your kid.
It started like this. So Tyler, I'm coaching back at Bradley, and Tyler's a up and coming junior. He's got, he's talented, having a good career. I tell him, well, listen, I want you to come to Bradley. I want you to play for me. He's like, Dad, I don't want to. And it broke my heart. I mean, I was devastated. Like, what do you mean? I mean, I just thought for sure he was going to say, I want to go do it on my own. I don't want people to think that you had to give me a scholarship. So I'm going to go play AAU. I'm going to go out on the circuit. Let's see who recruits me. Well, lo and behold, UC Davis recruits him. And obviously, we had lived out here and played, and he was born in Sacramento. So Jody and I come out here for the visit, and it's spectacular. It's this place, and he commits to UC Davis. So I have a unique perspective when I'm talking to parents. I say, you know what? I'm not asking you to do anything that I didn't do as a parent. I sent my son to UC Davis before I was coaching here. That tells you what I think of this place. And I was living in Illinois. I was living a long ways away too. So Tyler comes here for a year. Well, a year goes by and they end up dismissing their coach at UC Davis. And the AD calls me and said, would I have interest? Well, the first call I made was to Tyler. I was like, hey, you didn't want to play for me last year, but is it okay? Because, well, it's okay now because I've already earned my scholarship. So now you coming in after me, I kind of like that scenario better. It was such a blessing to be around him during, and most of us as we have kids and they go off to school, you don't get to spend as much time with them. And that's the thing that we all regretted. I got to be around him every day. It was great for me. I'm not sure it was always great for him,
Yeah.
but I thought it's always tougher on the athlete than it is on the parent when you're the coach. So being mindful of that. I know there were times where we would just go to lunch and we're not talking basketball. Let's just spend time being a dad and a son, and let's just talk about everything but basketball. But basketball was also our bond. He loved the game, us being able to talk. And I remember as a young age, him watching film with me and learning the game. That was part of our connection with our relationship. So I didn't want to shortchange that. I know with my staff, I always wanted to make sure because it's either you go two ways. Either you're really lenient on your son as a coach and he gets to do baby things that other players can't do, or you're overly strict. And now you're holding them to a standard that is way above everybody else and really unfair. I told my staff, I said, you guys got to keep me in check and make sure that I'm coaching him and treating him just like anybody else when we step between those lines. I think we were able to do that. And I do remember that first practice after he graduated when the team came back in the summer and he wasn't there. I was like, I realized how blessed I was to have that time with him. But it was a great experience. And for him, I played with Hersey Hawkins in college. And then for Corey Hawkins and Tyler Less to be the first team to win a championship here at UC Davis in the Division One era in the Big West was just a cool transformation. Both dads extremely proud, but having our sons who used to go to our basketball camps back in the day as little rugrats and run around, and to watch them grow into men, get their degree from here, win a championship, and have that success. It's one of my great memories as a coach.
So glad to hear that. You down for some lightning round to end it up?
Yeah, fire.
What's the best NBA city you ever played in as a visitor or a home player?
Well, I'm from Chicago.
And I
Uh,
see a big Michael Jordan poster behind you.
I'm from Chicago, but that was always hard because it was just the tickets and the distractions. So I'm going to say it's between Madison Square Garden and Boston Garden. Those two were pretty elite.
If you had a fourth career, what would it be? Because the third one we didn't get to, I could do like another hour with you, but you'd kill me and the producer would kill me because you were a financial advisor, as I know it, in between coaching. So if that's your third career, what would your fourth career be?
Fourth career would be wow. I think I would love to own my own business, just do something passionate. I remember as a young kid, I grew up in Chicago, so I was a Chicago dog guy. And I always told my mom, I'm going to have my own hot dog stand. So maybe it'll be I own a hot dog stand with the old. I don't know if it'll go well because everybody's so health conscious here in California. I'd have to go back to Chicago to open up that thing.
Yeah, Katie, my wife Katie will eat a hot dog. She loves hot dogs. She might kill me for saying that. What do you do for fun when you're not coaching?
Love to golf. Love to golf. My wife's a golfer, so that's good. Get away from the phone and just allow us time. We had our first grandchild 3 months ago was born. So enjoying my kids and the start of their journey into life and spending time with them. So our travel now is focused on how can we hang out with our kids.
That's awesome. What are you excited about going forward?
We're taking a jump to the Mountain West Conference. So going from the Big West Conference up a level, the Big West, we were like the 11th best conference in the country, and now we're going to the sixth best conference in the country. I'm energized by that challenge that we can continue to keep the standards that we have here, bringing in not only elite basketball players, but elite students and high character guys, and then going on that level and competing. I'm intrigued by that. And I love this new group that we're bringing in that's going to be the foundation for us moving into the Mountain West.
Really fun. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm really excited about that as a fan too. I'm not excited for you to have to travel so much. I know it's gonna be a lot on you and your guys, but for the region and as an alumni, it's really exciting to see us step up that way and you lead that. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to talk about or anything you want to ask me before we close out?
I would say, Nick, with all the experience in relationships and leadership know how that you have, what advice would you give me
That's a great
as
question.
a coach? What are some of the things that you see that maybe we didn't touch on that we need to be aware of so we can be the best we can be for the people that we're trying to lead?
I didn't hear any gaps, and I listen for gaps. That's where I make my money in a crossway at saying, but I heard some things I really, really like a lot. I liked you meeting, my words, not yours, you meeting them where they're at and not always assuming that you're right. I like you asking for help as a leader, whether it's asking your assistant coaches to make sure you're coaching Tyler the right way or whether you're asking for input otherwise. I like your attention to communication. They talk about, or like academia talks about explaining your why and explaining your why not. And I think that's something you're describing that you're excellent at. It can be hard. I think being clear is kind. And I think transparency with empathy is kindness. Transparency without empathy is cruelty. But I think you're doing a really, really good job in that space. Attention to family, I think, is really important. Building it on concrete is something I talk to emerging leaders about. And the way you built your life on concrete with Jody is by talking about what does she want, what works for her, adjusting. I really like you saying sorry. I hope as a leader, for you and for me at this stage of career, I'm not saying you're not saying sorry too often because it means we're not mastering some of our mistakes. But I think it's fantastic when the leader can say sorry, explain why, be willing to come back stronger. And I really like your attention. Again, my words, not yours, to demonstrating good leadership behavior. That's one of the things I find in conference rooms I work in organizations is the leader is not doing what he or she says. And as soon as they walk out, they roll their eyes. They roll their eyes, and I'm very conscious of that. It holds me to a high standard as a leader of leaders, and I suspect you feel the same way. I'm not going to give you space to roll your eyes at me because I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it, including I will say sorry if I mess up. Your attention on time and timeliness, I think, it's a pillar because it's not just about you; it's also about people around you and showing respect from leadership and from a growing emerging leaders. I take that from this conversation as a really big thing where you're really helping these young men out by understanding what it is. Whereas this is an early morning, Monday morning interview. You were early on Monday morning. Producer was early. I was early. You're practicing what you preach. I mean, you say you're honored to be on my show. Like, come on. I mean, you're a big deal. This is a real honor for me. And so for you to be on 15 minutes, 5 minutes early and be ready and paying attention and in your office, I think that's outstanding leadership behavior. It happens to feel good to me, but I like a lot of what you said a lot, and I took a lot from it.
I appreciate that, Nick. And as you're saying that, I was thinking about one of the things that I need to be better at is just the attitude of gratitude, especially in this today's age of everybody's comparing. It's little bit of the social media disease. I'm comparing myself to the guy next door, what they have or what they don't have. I think staying with that attitude of gratitude and staying in the moment and talking about because we as a basketball program or as in a university or me as a coach, we can always find things that we don't have and complain about things that, well, they have that and they have this and they're more talented and they're bigger and they're doing whatever. And it's kind of staying in the moment and being appreciative for what we do have.
You also said, let's rise to it. That freaking fires me up. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I'm thinking the same way. I still get nervous. I was nervous for this interview. I get anxious about conference rooms I'm going to walk in where they don't know me. And I got about 10 seconds to earn trust and respect before they get circumspect really quickly. Rise to it. It's freaking great. I mean, we're a mid-major moving toward major, but let's rise to it. I don't think that's a little thing. And I'm looking at your face when you say it. I'm like, he means it. I love that.
Hey, I've made a life of being the underdog and being the guy that was counted out. And I love it when our guys absorb that attitude. It's not what we don't have, it's what we do have. We may not win them all, but people are going to respect what we do and how we do it and the connection that we have with this group. The majority of that stuff is done off the floor and we carry it to the floor, but it's got to be built off the floor first.
Heck yeah. Jim Les, thank you so much for your valuable time and for allowing us to learn from your experience as a leader. Thank you also to Riley Byrne and our outstanding team at Prodigy Podcast. We'll see everyone next month on Together at the Top.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you so much for your time. Together at the Top thrives off listeners like you. To stay connected, follow our socials in the show notes and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll be releasing our show on the last Tuesday of every month. See you next time. At Nick Warner Consulting, we exist to coach and consult motivated professionals. I meet with you on Zoom in focused 90-minute sessions, working toward your goals and developing next-level business skill sets. My job is to add value to your organization and your career. To learn more, visit www.nickwarnerconsulting.com or call me directly at 916-765-3576.